Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Sawadee-ka. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We just actually restarted this program a couple of Sundays ago where I guide students through this first book of developing a life practice, the path that leads to enlightenment, helping students to understand the path to enlightenment based on the original words of the Buddha. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You would have trained your mind to get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. None of these feelings are experienced in the enlightened mind because the mind has been trained to the point where it no longer experiences those feelings. Oftentimes people think that these feelings are caused by something external, but it's actually being caused by your own mind. There's certain pollutions in the mind that the Buddha discovered in the unenlightened state. And when you apply the tools and the techniques that he taught, this is uprooted out of the mind and getting to the point where you're experiencing this enlightened mental state. Not only will you have eliminated those discontent feelings, but you will have eliminated any kind of difficulties and struggles in your day-to-day life in terms of all the challenges that you experience where maybe you're contemplating what decision to make and you're really struggling with that because the mind lacks certain wisdom. You'll have certain challenges in your life as you get to enlightenment, but you'll be able to approach those with wisdom rather than struggles and difficulties. You'll notice that the mind is focused, concentrated, you have clarity of mind and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming, that you don't have the bitterness and harshness and hostility in the mind any longer. Oftentimes people think that that's coming from other people, where in reality it's coming from your own mind. And this is why you can transform it and eliminate it because it's actually coming from the mind itself. You'll get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer. That is physically impossible for the enlightened mind to experience a bad mood. And this is coming through training of the mind. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs and then hoping that something good happens when you die. It's also not rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. The Buddha didn't teach those kinds of things. If you're seeing those kinds of things associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those are gross misunderstandings of his teachings. He didn't teach based in belief. He didn't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. Instead, he taught you how to train your mind. And there are certain teachings that you need in order to be able to learn those, investigate them, examine them. You're going to need to reflect on them to verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're going to need to practice those teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life. So throughout this program, a 7-month program that I teach here at the temple, and I also live stream it, so no matter where you are in the world, you can attend. I help students over a 7-month period to gradually understand the path to enlightenment, little by little, each Sunday and Wednesday. We have other programs too, but that's what this program is on Sundays and Wednesdays. And today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing meditation with you guys. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll be starting class with meditation and then I'll do a talk afterwards. But based on having just recently restarted the group learning program, what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be teaching you about meditation first, and then we're going to be doing meditations after that, because it's important to understand the ins and outs of meditation so that way when you're developing a meditation practice, you'll have more wisdom to be able to build that practice, because you're going to need meditation to be able to get to enlightenment, but you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. Sometimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment, and this just isn't true. It was gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. There are many aspects of his practice, certain wisdom that he needed in order to be able to make his way to enlightenment. It wasn't just meditation, but just like you wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. So here at the beginning of the group learning program, I'm going to share with you guys this topic of breathing mindfulness meditation so that you guys can understand the ins and outs of meditation, starting with just some basics. And then we're going to move into some more in-depth teachings on meditation. And then ultimately, we're going to finish up our session today where I'm going to guide you in a meditation session. I'm going to be pausing a few times throughout this talk to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions, because oftentimes students need to ask questions to get more clarity and experience more understanding of what it is that I'm sharing. If you're here at the temple and you would like to ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl in the middle of the room. All you need to do is get a microphone, bring it to your seat. You'll press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and you can hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphones. And then when you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that'll be sure that we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. So just to cover a couple of basics as we go into this topic about meditation, is I share a definition here at the beginning of this particular talk and in the chapter in the book where I teach this topic to make sure students understand what I'm talking about when I'm describing meditation. Because the world is different and everybody thinks about things in different ways. When I say the word meditation, someone might think of that in the way that they're thinking about it. But if you understand the way that I'm thinking about it and the way that I teach it, then you understand what I'm describing. Whether you agree with this definition or not is a choice for you to make, but at least you understand that when I'm using the word meditation, what am I referring to? What I'm referring to is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to either eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind or cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. And this is accomplished in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. These are 4 positions that the Buddha taught in order to train the mind. And we'll be talking about those today. Oftentimes people think that meditation might be exercising or walking the dog or gardening or going for a drive. Nowadays in modern conversation, someone might say, oh, honey, I'm going for a drive and I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate, or I'm going to go to the gym and meditate. This isn't actually meditation. When you hear the recommendations that I share in terms of the time and frequency of meditation, if you were going to walk the dog twice a day, because you're going to hear me recommend 2 meditations, 2 to 3 per day. If you were just going to walk the dog or gardening, you wouldn't actually be making your way to enlightenment. So it's important to understand that these things aren't meditation. While someone might choose to do those things and they might be very helpful and enjoyable for someone in their life, that's not meditation. It's either walking the dog, gardening, or driving, or any of these other things. So meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. It's important as you're building a meditation practice and you're developing this to have a teacher. Whether someone considers me to be their teacher or not, that's a choice for each individual person to make, but you're going to need somebody to reach out to. Nowadays in the self-service environment that we have, where if you'd like to say bake a cake or something like this, you can probably get on YouTube if you've never baked a cake and figure out how to bake a cake. Well, getting to enlightenment is not that way. You're not going to be able to figure this out by yourself. That's what a Buddha actually does. The 3 criteria of what makes a Buddha is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the 3 criteria of what makes a Buddha. And this type of individual is very rare in the world. The last one that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. So only a Buddha would be able to figure out how to get to enlightenment by themselves. So you're going to need teachers or guides to be able to guide you along the path. It's you doing the work. It's you as an independent practitioner that is learning and growing and developing on this path to enlightenment. But a teacher is kind of like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and understand. And each individual student is choosing to walk forward and learn and grow and develop in those teachings. I'm going to share a story with you of someone who didn't understand this and help you to understand how detrimental it is if someone doesn't understand what I just shared. There was an individual who was a doctor in his home country, and he didn't understand that he needed teachers to be able to help him to progress on the path to enlightenment. So he was reading books, watching YouTube videos, and these kinds of things by himself for the first 2 years. And after a 2-year period, he got to the point where he wasn't able to go to work any longer. He was sleeping 23 hours a day. He was having depression and suicidal thoughts. He was having obsessive thoughts. His relationships were starting to fall apart. This individual was obviously an intelligent person because they were a doctor in their home country, but they didn't understand that they needed to have a teacher to be able to guide them. And they were trying to mix together and match together different teachings from different teachers, and it put their mind in a situation where they were having all kinds of complications. But at one point, they figured out that they needed help. So for one reason or another, they reached out and they started contacting me, and I was helping them through the internet, through messaging and talking by video chat and things like this. But eventually I invited this person to come to Thailand because their case was so challenging. It was very challenging to be able to help them online. So they ended up coming here for a period of time and receiving some training. They ultimately went home, and over about a 4 to 6 year period, they ultimately were able to work their way out of those difficulties and struggles. They got back to work. They weren't sleeping 23 hours a day any longer. They weren't having those obsessive thoughts and suicidal thoughts and all these kinds of things. Their relationship with their fiance did fall apart, but nonetheless, they were able to regain their ability to get back into society and start experiencing day-to-day life again. I don't suspect any of this will ever happen to you because you understand that you need help from teachers and guides, because as you're developing your practice and your mind is starting to awaken, you're going to experience different things on this path. And you need to be able to reach out to a real live teacher to be able to ask for help. And if what you get back from that teacher is what you're experiencing is normal, keep going, this can be very reassuring for you. Whereas if you don't have a relationship with a teacher to be able to reach out to, you can work yourself into a corner where it can be quite complicated or quite difficult. So I suggest that you find somebody that you can have confidence in and that you trust, that you can reach out to get help from. There's 4 positions that the Buddha taught in order to meditate in, because you need to go through the body in order to be able to train the mind. The mind is the boss, the body is the employee, but you need to go through the employee to be able to get to the boss. So you'd like the employee to be comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but you like the employee to be comfortable. Because if the employee is painful, it's not going to take you to go see the boss. But also if it's too luxurious, it's not going to take you to go see the boss. So you'd like the body to be comfortable. So I'm going to share with you guys these 4 positions that the Buddha taught, and I'm going to explain to you in which ways you might decide to use these. But just keep in mind that what I share with you are just recommendations or things for you to consider. It's never wise to just believe somebody. Don't believe the things I write in books. Don't believe the things that I say in class. It's important that you learn and examine, investigate what it is that's being shared, that you reflect on that to verify whether it's true or false, and then you practice it to be able to see the truth for yourself. So I'm going to share with you what these 4 positions are and how I've used them, but then you use them in whatever way you think is best without believing what I'm sharing, so that way you can see the truth for yourself of what would be wise and how to use these positions in different situations. So the seated position is kind of like the go-to position. This is like a primary position that a lot of people use, either sitting on the floor in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa in a wheelchair. You can really sit however you like. There's not just one fixed way to actually sit. But if you're on the floor, oftentimes people will have cushions under their rear, and then they will lightly cross their legs, because you'd like to have the circulation flowing in your legs, where if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation in the lower body. Sometimes people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. That's not the world we live in. All of our bodies are different. We're going to find different things to be comfortable. There's not just one permanent or fixed way to actually sit in meditation. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs, their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you could put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing's true for someone who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you could put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of the upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because remember, this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. If you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So this seated position is kind of like the primary position that a lot of people learn in. I would say a good 80%, maybe even 90% of the meditation that I've done has been in the seated position. But in the seated position, sometimes you might notice aches and pains in the body, and that's where the lying position comes in. It would be very unwise to just breathe through the pain. Sometimes you might hear this. People might teach you that if you're noticing pain in the body, just breathe through it. This is unwise because the physical pain is an indication to you that there's something in the body that's not comfortable. And you might even be damaging part of the physical body. And you would like to adjust your position. And that's where the lying position comes in. The Buddha taught us through his life story that it's unwise to cause physical pain to the body. When he first started doing training, he was having teachers teaching him to hang himself upside down from trees, lay on beds of nails, pierce his body with metal implements. He was starving himself, and he realized that none of these things actually led to enlightenment, and ultimately he started training his mind. So anybody who's teaching that if you're in meditation and you're feeling pain, to just breathe through it, they're not understanding that causing the physical body pain doesn't actually produce enlightenment. Because if you're training your mind and all you're experiencing is pain, 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 this isn't actually going to help you eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities, because your mind's being dominated by these sensations of pain. So in the seated position, if you're ever noticing pain, you can adjust your position within that position, or you can switch to a lying position. Lying position is where you're on your back, face up. Maybe your arms are out to the side. Some people might refer to this as a resting pose or corpse pose or shavasana pose. If you've ever done yoga, this is the way that they refer to that. So this is a position where all the muscles in the body are completely relaxed. Then there's standing position. This is also helpful if you're noticing that there's aches and pains in the body, or if you're noticing that you're falling asleep, because sometimes in the seated position or the lying position, you might get a little bit drowsy. And you can switch to the standing position, which will kind of invigorate the mind a little bit, or the walking position. The standing position is where you stand with your feet at shoulders width, and you might clasp your wrist in front of you or behind you, or you might just put your arms and hands along the side of your body. Here, you're going to be doing the same exact thing with the mind, which is what I'm going to teach you guys, but the position is just slightly different to invigorate the mind so you're not falling asleep. I've also used the standing position, whereas maybe I was at a bus stop and the bus wasn't coming for 5 or 10 minutes or so. I might just do like a little touch-up meditation there. It wasn't one of my main primary meditations for the day, but it was like a little touch-up meditation. Or maybe I was in a government line that was only moving every 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and I would just stand there and do a little bit of meditation in the standing position. So you can use it in those situations too. The walking position is really helpful, again, if you're falling asleep, if you're noticing that, or if you would like to kind of invigorate the mind. If you're noticing that the mind is falling asleep and you need to invigorate it, or if you're noticing that there's a lot of energy in the mind and the last thing you're thinking about is being still and being in one spot, you could do a walking position. I teach this in other programs, other courses and things like this. I'm not going to do the walking position here, but normally what I'll do is in various courses, I'll teach walking position and then I'll do it with the students. So if you're interested in learning walking position, you can check our YouTube channel and you'll see there that we have plenty of videos where I've taught walking position. So do you guys have any questions on any of these meditation basics before we go into this in more detail? Remember, you guys can use the microphones here, and online you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. No questions? Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online here either. All right. You have a question? No? Okay. All right. So now let's go into some more topics here of starting and conducting your meditation practice. So it's important to understand that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. What I mean by that is anything that happens in your day-to-day life, it's all coming through the mind. It's like the CPU of a computer. If the CPU of the computer isn't functioning well, the whole computer isn't functioning well. It's the same thing with this being who you are. If your mind isn't purified, if you haven't trained your mind with this path to enlightenment, you're going to experience things like stress and anxiety, guilt, shame, fear, all these other discontent feelings because the mind hasn't been well trained yet. So you need to be able to go through the body in order to be able to get to the boss and train the boss, which is why the body needs to be comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but in the middle where it's comfortable. The Buddha, when you learn his teachings, his exact words when he's actually teaching meditation, because we have the original words of the Buddha of how he used to actually teach meditation. Oftentimes people aren't studying this, but we actually have that and we share it with you guys for free at no cost. You can download our books from our website for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon. If you read the original words of the Buddha, where he's teaching and guiding students in meditation, what he will typically say prior to meditating is he'll say, set up mindfulness in front of you prior to meditating. What mindfulness is awareness of mind. More specifically, it's something called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But when someone's first getting started to understand mindfulness, you understand it as awareness of mind, where you're aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your perceptions, the various things that are going on in your own mind. And you need to be aware of the mind as you enter into meditation. Whereas if you were to just plop down into meditation and try to start meditating, you're going to notice that you're not getting as much benefit because the mind just plopped down in the meditation. And it's going to take 5, 10, 15 minutes before you gain some awareness to actually be able to start meditating. But if you do something to kind of ease the mind into meditation, giving some awareness of the mind, now at the very beginning of your meditation, you can start experiencing benefit. So one of the things you'll see that I do as a way to ease into meditation is I do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And I see many of you guys have chanting sheets. Over there on the cabinet are the chanting sheets. So if you haven't gotten a chanting sheet, you're more than welcome to help yourself to a chanting sheet, because we're going to ultimately be meditating by the time we get to the end of all of this. And for those of you guys online, you can find this on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the daily chanting sheet there. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Everything that he taught was oral. So he used chanting or recitation of the teachings. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. It was used as a learning tool or as a learning device, where today we use it as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation that you're actually conducting the meditation session. But oftentimes people think that there's something mystical or magical here with these chants. And that's not true. That's why I put the English translations here, so you guys can see what it is that you're chanting. And if you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself, because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance if somebody chose to do that. So I'm sure that the Buddha wouldn't have created these chants, but if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you. They were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart. You'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. And that's why I think these chants actually came from his students, either during his life or after his death. So I use these as a way to set up mindfulness in front of you as you're easing into the meditation. But if you're not interested in chanting, that's a choice for you to make. It's your practice. If you're not going to chant, it would be wise for you to do something else to bring some awareness of the mind as you're easing into meditation. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule of meditation, there's some recommendations that I can provide you here. It's important to understand that you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time every day. It is impossible. Due to the universal truth of impermanence, you're not going to be able to meditate at the exact same time every day. That things are going to happen. Things are going to be changing. So if you set up on your calendar that you're going to meditate every day at 8 a.m., I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen. There's going to be things that happen and occur that's not going to allow you to meditate at 8 a.m. every day. I can even share a little example from my life. One time I was meditating in my room and my son comes in and he's like, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." I was like, "Really? I thought your mom was going to take you to school." He was like, "Yeah, me too. She's gone. I don't know where she's at. I need you to take me to school." I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'll stop meditating and go take him to school." And then when I came back, I started meditating again. Sometimes you'll hear people that will tell you that you need to meditate at a specific time every day. This isn't true. You might hear someone recommend to meditate every day at 3:30 a.m. and that's the best time of day, and you're going to get this magical benefit if you meditate at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Well, I can assure you that there is nothing going on at 3:30 a.m. that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse. So you can meditate anytime you like during the day. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day. He didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day, and he got to enlightenment. And the way that I know that he didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day is because watches weren't even invented 2,500 years ago when the Buddha existed. So there was no possible way for him to meditate at exactly 3:30 a.m. every day. So there's nothing special going on at that time. But the Buddha did meditate 3 times a day. Morning, midday, and evening. You can see this in his teachings. So what I encourage you to do is set up anchor points for yourself, where in the morning and the evening, you're doing some meditation, somewhere in that time frame, right? And then if you can get a middle of the day meditation in, that would be excellent. You're not going to be able to get to enlightenment with just one meditation a day. You're going to need to build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. Now, it can take 6 months, year, even 2 years to build up to that level of frequency. But remember, there's probably some things that are going on in your life right now that you could kind of strip back that are maybe unbeneficial, that you could shrink down. Maybe if you're watching endless YouTube video after YouTube video, you could kind of shrink that down. Or if you're searching social media and surfing that a lot, scrolling a lot, you could probably bring that down a little bit, and you could actually notice that you'll have time in your day to actually be meditating. So you'd like to build up this practice of 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. That's really all you need to be successful in moving your mind to enlightenment. I don't suggest that you use an alarm during your meditation. This is kind of a thing that some people choose to do, is they set an alarm. There's going to be 2 things that happen. Either one of these 2 things are going to happen if you set an alarm for meditation. You're either going to be in meditation and you're going to be thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Your mind's going to be longing, yearning to know if it's time yet. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. Oh man, if I just didn't set the alarm, right? So where you don't need an alarm, like maybe in the evenings or in the weekends, it's best to not set an alarm. But if you only have 15 or 20 minutes to meditate and you're on your way to work and you need to set the alarm, go for it if that's what you need. But where you don't need an alarm, it's best to not use one. What you'd like to do is about once a week, check in on the time by looking at the time before you start meditating. And maybe it's 9 o'clock and now you start meditating. And then after you're done meditating, look at your time again. And maybe now it's 9:15 and you can see you've been meditating for 15 minutes. So that means on your future sessions, you'd like to just kind of expand that wider and wider and wider, make it a little bit longer. And you only really need to check in about once a week. I still do this today. I'll check in because sometimes, 5 minutes of meditation can seem like an hour, but other times an hour of meditation can seem like 5 minutes. So you'd like to just kind of check in about once a week to see how long it is that you've been meditating. So about 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes, understanding that you can't meditate at exactly the same time. Have those anchor points for yourself, morning, midday, and evening, and you can meditate somewhere in there. And then understand that where you don't need to, it's best to not use an alarm. You might notice some sleepiness during your meditation. This is common, especially when you first get started with your meditation practice. You might start kind of dozing off during your meditation. You kind of have 2 options here. One is you could switch positions. You could switch to a standing position or a walking position. This will help invigorate the mind. But the other option is just get some sleep, right? Your mind needs some sleep, and your mind's sleepy, so get some sleep, take a nap. And then when you wake up, you can meditate then, because you kind of have this little hump to get over. Sometimes when people start training their mind, they start noticing that it becomes more tired, not just during meditation, but outside of meditation too. It's kind of like this body. If you took this body to the gym and you were exercising it and you hadn't been exercising for a very long time, you probably notice that the body's a little bit more sore, a little bit more achy, and you're a little bit more sleepy than normal. Well, meditation is essentially like exercising the mind. It's like taking the mind to the gym. And you might notice that you become a little bit sleepy for the first 3 months, 6 months, even a year. The mind is finally getting what it's needed all these years. It's kind of like a dry sponge absorbing this meditation. And you might notice that you get a little bit sleepy. So you could either switch positions to either a standing or a walking position, or you could just get some sleep because that's what your mind needs. Sometimes people experience physical sensations during meditation. What I mean by this is like some itching or scratching. And if you're noticing this, what I encourage you to do is understand that that scratch or that itch, it is impermanent, meaning it is not permanent. It's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And if you can focus on the breath during your meditation, and you can go all the way through the life cycle of that itch where it arises, it changes, and it fades away, and your mind is unaffected by that, that would be ideal. But on your way to this, you might notice 5 seconds in, 8 seconds in, you just have this really strong urge to scratch that itch. Well, go ahead and do that if that's what you need to do. But the next time, try to make it a little bit longer. Try to make it 10 seconds or 12 seconds, and then a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and eventually get to the point where you don't have to scratch those little itches every single time the one arises. Understanding that this body cannot be permanently comfortable, and those little itches aren't causing harm to the body. It's just impermanence that's going to arise, change, and fade away. Sometimes people experience visual stimulation during their meditation. What I mean by this is they might see certain colors like white or purple or green or different things like this. Or you might have certain images that come through the mind while you're meditating. This is all completely normal. But sometimes people contact me. They're like, David, I saw green in my meditation this morning. Does that mean I'm going to get rich? What does that mean? Or, I saw purple this morning. Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's coming back to me? What does that mean? It doesn't mean any of those kinds of things. And you're not a special person just because this has occurred. Because sometimes the conceit or the ego can arise where it's like, wow, I'm so special. I saw purple in my meditation this morning. And now you want to go around and tell everybody about it. Well, I'm going to explain to you guys what this is so you'll understand that it's not that your boyfriend or girlfriend is coming back to you. It's nothing like that. It's actually something related to what's going on in the physical body. So I'll explain this to you. So if this is occurring, you'll understand that it's normal and it's going to be a temporary thing. It might happen for a few weeks or a few months, and then ultimately you're not going to be experiencing it anymore once all of the changes have taken place. The reason why you're able to see things in meditation is because sight is occurring inside the brain. When your eyes are closed, you can actually still see things because sight is occurring inside the brain. The eyeball itself is just a lens that brings in light. The sight is occurring inside the brain. So when your eyes are closed and you're training the mind is non-physical. It's not tangible. The brain is something completely different than the mind. The brain is the physical organ that's inside the skull. So when you're training the mind, there's a connection to the brain, and the physical structures of the brain are actually changing. Scientists and researchers and doctors are measuring this nowadays, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they weren't able to do that. But now we have MRIs, we have CAT scans, we have things like this, that doctors, researchers, and scientists are able to measure the physical structures of the brain that are changing. And when this is occurring, you might see colors like purple or green or white or various images. You might even hear this occurring inside the skull. When I was meditating, I used to hear it sometimes. It was like... I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in my skull. I would get migraine headaches about 3 times a week, sometimes to the point of vomiting. Where after training the mind, I don't have that pressure in the skull anymore, and I don't get any migraine headaches any longer because the physical structures of the brain have changed. So this is one of the benefits that we understand that is occurring. And once you get to a certain point of training and these physical structures of the brain have changed, they will never change back to the way they were before. And these are all beneficial changes that are occurring. So you might notice this visual stimulation during your meditation, and you'll know what it is. Sometimes people have been taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by this is like beads or music, phone apps, candles, incense, things of this nature. If you've been meditating with those kinds of things up to this point, okay, that's what's led you up to this point. But now what I would do is encourage you to eliminate those things from your practice. Because if you hold on to those things, then your mind is attached to them and it's not free from holding on to those things. You would like to get to the point where you only need 3 things to meditate. And you'll have these 3 things with you at all times. All you need is the body, the mind, and the breath. If you have these 3 things with you, you can meditate anywhere, anytime. The body, the mind, and the breath. So say, for example, you're walking and you're at a nice park and you're walking through this park and the birds are chirping, the sun is glistening, the lake looks beautiful, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'd really like to sit down and do some meditation here. This is a beautiful environment. Oh, I don't have my special candle with me. I can't meditate, right? So if your mind is hooked to these kinds of things, you can't meditate anywhere, anytime. Or say you're like on a trekking tour in the remote mountains of Thailand. You're maybe somewhere in Chiang Mai, 3 days away from civilization, and you're in the jungle and the forest, and you're like, wow, I'd really like to meditate. Oh man, I can't. My phone app doesn't work out here. I can't meditate, right? So you'd like to get to the point where you don't need any of those things, where you strip all that stuff away, where all you need is the body, the mind, and the breath. So if you're meditating with these things now, you can gradually eliminate them because the mind doesn't like real big changes in your life. So if you do these little incremental changes in your meditation practice, your mind will really appreciate this. So if you're meditating, say with music right now, what I would suggest you do, or any of these other things, is you do 1 session with it, 1 session without it. 1 session with it, 1 session without it. Maybe you do that for a week or 2. And then when your mind is acclimated to that, then you do 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without. 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without, and do that for like a week or 2. And then ultimately you can get to the point where it's 1 session with it, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 without it. And ultimately you'll get to the point where you don't need these things any longer. Whenever you're eliminating something unwholesome from your life, you can actually use the same strategy. Like say, for example, if I smoked cigarettes and I was interested in eliminating this out of my life, and I say was smoking 20 cigarettes a day, I would go down to 18 for about a week or 2. And then once the body and the mind is adjusted to that, I then go down to 15 for like a week or 2, and then go down to 12, right? So forth and so on. And eventually you get to the point where you're gradually decreasing it like this, and the body and the mind will really appreciate this. And you can do this when you're eliminating something unwholesome from your life, but you can also do it when you're improving your life and you're bringing in wholesome things. Like let's just say you were interested in moving to a plant-based food supply and starting to eat plant-based food. Well, you can't just snap your fingers and go cold turkey and stuff like that. You might choose to kind of eat 1 meal or 1 day where you're eating plant-based food, and then you're eating meat. And then you maybe gradually increase that over the time. Like I was just describing with cigarettes, where you're gradually decreasing, you can gradually increase something like this, where you're finding new restaurants, new recipes, new suppliers, and things like this. So this is starting and conducting your meditation sessions. And this is things to keep in mind as you're developing your practice. Now, some words of the Buddha on meditation, because right now, today, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of meditations in the world. And the Buddha never created all of these meditations. If you're interested in understanding how to get to enlightenment based on what the Buddha taught, you're going to need to study his original teachings, his original words, because otherwise you would be misled in what it is that's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. A Buddha has already figured out how to get to enlightenment. You don't need to invent that. You don't need to figure that out. In fact, you can't figure it out because that's what a Buddha does. All you need to be able to do is learn and understand what it is that he taught. And if you learn and understand what he taught and then you practice that, that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment too. So you would like to get as close to what the Buddha actually taught and practiced during his lifetime, because that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment as well. And the only way you'd be able to do that is if you studied his original words. So these are his original words where he's introducing 4 meditations. Those are the only 4 that he ever taught. And if you learn these 4, you can get really deep with these 4. Whereas if you tried to learn 50 or 100 different meditations, you wouldn't have the proficiency and the ability to really master these meditations in a way that's going to be impactful in your life. So these are the only 4 that he ever taught. And I share this with you because I'm sure you've been exposed to many different meditations. And oftentimes those other meditations are actually taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. So the Buddha was talking here prior to this with his students about other things. And then he gets to this point where he says, having based himself on these 5 things, the monk should develop further another 4 things. So he was talking about these other 5 things, and now he's talking about these 4 things, which is where he introduces his meditations. The perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. If you have really strong sexual cravings and you would like to reduce that, you can actually do that through meditation. Loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is a meditation that helps you eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will in the mind, and even lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike. Right now, you might like certain people and you might dislike certain people. That dislike is coming from your own mind. Oftentimes people think it's coming from the other person, but you have certain expectations. There's certain things you want, certain things you're craving. And when people do things your way, you like them. But when people don't do things your way, you dislike them. That's the mind craving permanence. The mind in the unenlightened state will crave permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Everything around you is impermanent, is constantly changing. But the mind craves this permanence. And when somebody does things the way you want and the way you expect, you will like them. But when they don't do things your way, you will dislike them. You can get to the point where you don't have that in your mind anymore, where you can have love and kindness for all beings. And it just means that you're going to need to have some training of the mind. This meditation is part of that, but there's other aspects of the training as well. So this loving kindness meditation essentially rewires the mind to be more loving and kind and warm and gentle, so that now through your intention, speech, and actions, you can be more loving and kind with the people around you. Because as long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships, all that's just going to come back to you. Again, the unenlightened mind will firmly believe that bitterness and hostility is being caused by the other person, where in reality it's coming from your own mind. And when you become unskillful and you put out that bitterness and harshness and hostility in your relationships, it's all just going to come back to you. You can look in the relationships you have right now where you're bitter and harsh and hostile. Those people are bitter and harsh and hostile with you too. So you're going to need to improve this in order to improve your relationships. You're going to need to improve your own mind. Oftentimes people think the way to improve their relationships is to change the other person. You might have been doing that for a period of time where you're trying to change mom and dad or brothers and sisters or your life partner or your children. You'll never get to peace and joy by trying to change other people. That's the mind craving permanence and wanting everybody to do things a certain way. The way that you get to peace and joy and harmonious relationships is work on your own mind. If you work on your own mind, this is what's going to get you to peace and joy, not changing other people. So this meditation will essentially rewire your mind to be more loving and kind, so that then in your day-to-day interactions, you can be loving and kind. And then that's what's going to transform your relationships. Then the meditation we're going to be doing today, which is mindfulness of breathing or breathing mindfulness meditation, is to be developed to cut off thoughts. This is a meditation that trains your mind to build this internal mechanism where you cut off and cut off and cut off, where you build awareness of mind or mindfulness, you develop concentration, but then you develop the ability to cut off and let go. Because when that anger is arising in your day-to-day life, it's being caused by your own mind. And if you've been training your mind in meditation and with other teachings as well, you can cut that off and let it go. You don't need that anger to come into your mind. You don't need to fill up your mind with anger and hostility and bitterness. You can actually get ahead of that, and you can actually cut it off and let it go. And you can actually retrain your mind to the point where you no longer experience anger and bitterness and hostility, where it just never even arises. So this meditation is going to help you to build the awareness of mind or mindfulness and the ability to cut off and let go, so that now with that internal mechanism in your mind, in your day-to-day life, wherever you're noticing frustration or guilt or shame or fear, loneliness or boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, stress, anxiety, whenever you're noticing these things coming up, you can actually cut it off. And if you do that enough, you'll get to the point where it never arises anymore, that the causes and conditions have been uprooted and those things don't even arise in your mind any longer. So this meditation is a primary aspect of that. Then there's this fourth meditation. The perception of unattractiveness should be developed to eradicate the conceit I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit I am, which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. So this is a meditation to realize non-self. For those of you guys that have studied that with me and you understand what that is, this is a meditation to help you do that. Now, when students are first starting out, they will typically start with the breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. These are the two that you start out with, because everybody's going to need breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation to get to enlightenment. These other two, to eliminate sexual cravings and to realize non-self, while an individual will need to work on that, not everybody needs these meditations to be able to actually accomplish that. So as I shared at the beginning, meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. Well, this is a visual aid that's helping you to see with each one of these meditations what are the unwholesome qualities you're eliminating and what are the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating in each one of these meditations. This is the why behind your meditation. This is the reason why you are meditating, is that with the breathing mindfulness meditation, you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind thinks that something external is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. And if the unenlightened mind's not doing that, it'll typically swing all the way to the other side, where it's dull and lethargic and feeling lazy. But the Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, and interests with ambition and enthusiasm, but without forming your feelings based on whether you get that thing or not. Because in the unenlightened state, when you have craving, desire, attachment, you'll be happy when you get what you want. You'll get pleasant feelings. You'll get so excited, right? You'll be thrilled. But when you don't get what you want, your mind's going to experience painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And because you live in an impermanent world, you will not always get what you want. So as long as your mind is longing, yearning, and chasing, then that means in some cases you're going to get what you want and you'll be happy. In other cases you won't and you'll be sad and frustrated. So to be able to get to the peace and joy where the mind is cheerful, glad, bright, and uplifted, you're going to need to be able to get to the point where your mind is no longer forming its feelings based on external circumstances. And that's where this breathing mindfulness meditation will help you to be able to do that. And not only are you eliminating that unwholesome quality of craving, desire, attachment, the wants and expectations, the chasing and forming your inner feelings based on things, but you're also cultivating mindfulness or awareness of mind, and you're cultivating concentration or focus and clarity. So I'm not going to go through the rest of these because we're really focused on breathing mindfulness meditation. And I'm going to teach loving kindness meditation in about 4 weeks from now in this particular program, because it really means that a practitioner needs about 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks to build up their breathing mindfulness meditation before they bring in the loving kindness meditation. So this is helping you guys to understand the why behind meditation. Now, here's some more words of the Buddha on meditation. He says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. What he's saying is a mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent, because the mind is the pot. The stand is the meditation practice. So right now, depending on if you're meditating or not, or how much you're meditating, or how closely you're meditating the way that the Buddha taught, your pot might be on a little bit of a dowel rod where it's just kind of teeter-tottering, where it's very easy for something to happen and boom, you get angry and frustrated. But the more you train your mind through meditation and all the other teachings that the Buddha shares, your stand is becoming wider and wider and wider and wider, and it becomes more and more difficult to tip over the pot, meaning it's more and more challenging for you to become discontent. As you train your mind, you'll get to the point where your mind's stable and steady all the time, that it doesn't tip over like this. So the Buddha is explaining a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. This next teaching here, he's describing the purpose of this meditation. He says, monks, there is one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So he's not saying you only need one thing to get to enlightenment, which is meditation, because otherwise we wouldn't have 45 volumes of books that are this thick. He would have just taught meditation and that's it, right? But he has many other teachings besides meditation. What he's saying is that there's one purpose for this meditation. There's one goal for this meditation. That is to get to enlightenment. It's to get to the freedom of strong feelings, to peace. It's kind of like your car. It leads to one thing, which is transportation, right? But you need more than transportation in your life to be able to sustain your life. But yeah, this car, it leads to one thing, which is transportation. So the same thing here is that this meditation, it leads to one thing, which is enlightenment. That's the purpose of this meditation. That obviously you're not going to be able to meditate once and instantly get to enlightenment, but as you gradually train your mind with this meditation, it leads to enlightenment, among other aspects of your practice that you need to develop. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time to get to enlightenment. It's not going to be a 1 week thing, a 1 month thing, or even a 1 year thing, but it's a permanent solution. Getting to enlightenment, your mind will never again experience any of those discontent feelings. Okay, so now just in terms of teaching you how to meditate, and then we're going to actually do this together, is you would like to focus on the breath. That when we go into meditation, you're going to hear me guiding you to focus on the breath. Either the sound of the breath or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. This is the present moment. So we're going to be focused on the breath. Anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. It's kind of like a wild animal that's attached to a post or pillar with a rope. And as it pulls, it gets yanked back. And then as it pulls, it gets yanked back and it keeps getting yanked back. Eventually that animal is going to realize, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to sit down by this post and pillar and be calm, right? The same thing's true about your mind. Every time it pulls, if you keep yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back, over time, your mind's going to be like, every time I pull, he or she keeps yanking me back. I can't go anywhere. I'm just going to sit here and be calm, right? So the breath is the post or the pillar that you keep yanking the mind back to. Then when thoughts are rising, you're cutting those off and bringing them back. You're going to have thoughts during meditation. Even an enlightened being has thoughts. So you're either going to probably have a bombardment of thoughts where it's like thought, or you're going to have a thought. You're going to follow it for a little while. You're going to look at it. You're going to play with it. You're going to indulge in it. And then like 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back. Right? So if these things happen, it's very normal. That's going to be happening for a good long while. The enlightened mind still has thoughts during meditation, but the difference is between the thoughts, there's stillness and quietness. So an enlightened being has a thought, but they notice it right away and then cut it off and let it go and bring the mind right back to the breath. And now there's this quietness and stillness between the thoughts. But that's not the case in the unenlightened state. You'll have a bombardment of thoughts, or you'll indulge in a thought for a period of time. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. Do you guys have any questions on anything I've been sharing so far? Anything you'd like to ask? No? Okay. So let's do some meditation together. I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in. And then afterwards, I'm going to come in with some guidance. You'll hear me guiding you and instructing you and teaching you how to meditate. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Now, during this quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. There might be a car go by, a bird chirping, a dog barking. Someone here might cough or sneeze. This is normal. This is impermanence. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. But that sound's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And if you're in meditation, understanding impermanence, you can be at peace and be at joy, understanding the world's functioning exactly the way it's intended to function. So during that time of quietness, you're going to hear occasional sounds, but you just focus on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and bring it back to the breath. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then I'll just kind of check in with you guys, see if you have any questions, and we'll just kind of wrap things up from there. All right. So if you guys would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. And then I'm going to come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Potang Mahakawanang Apiwate Ami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Damang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawakasangko Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakatoro Kawitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิ สวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So this is breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training in addition to other things that the Buddha used in order to move his mind to enlightenment. You'd like to build up this practice to 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes, keeping in mind that that can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that. You're not in a race with anyone. You're not in a competition with anyone. It's your own personal journey to enlightenment. So you're not comparing to other people. You're gradually developing your own practice based on the guidance and recommendation from the Buddha and people who have actually trained in his teachings. So when you're in meditation, you're actually cutting off everything and anything that comes up. It doesn't matter what comes up in meditation. You're cutting off everything and anything because you're training your mind to build that internal mechanism where you can cut off and let go. But then in daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome things that are coming up in your day-to-day life. So if you have the thought in your day-to-day life, like, hey, I'd like to call my mom and invite her out to dinner. I'd like to take her out to dinner. That'd be really nice to practice some generosity with mom. No need to cut that off, right? You can give mom a call. Hey, mom, what are you doing? What's up? Maybe you invite her out. But if you're thinking about punching your boss in the face, cut that off, right? That's going to produce some unwholesome results for you. That's an unwholesome thought. Cut that off, right? So that's what this meditation is doing for you. You're training in one way, but you're practicing in a slightly different way. It's just like a professional athlete. If I was a pole vaulter, my sport is pole vaulting. And when I go into the gym, maybe I'm doing weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. It looks very different than my sport. But when I do my sport, it's very different, right? I'm doing this pole vaulting. So the same thing is true when you're exercising the mind with meditation. You're training to cut off everything and anything that comes up because you're building that internal mechanism. But in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. So you're walking down the street, you're noticing your mind starting to judge someone, you're starting to look down on them, you're starting to measure and compare this person, putting yourself above them, putting yourself below them. That judgment is coming from your own conceit. You'd like to cut that off. Don't allow your mind to sit there and measure and compare people, putting yourself above people and putting yourself below people. So that's what this meditation is going to do for you. And I'm going to open up for questions, but before I do, I'm just going to end with this last thought, and then I'll just open up to see whatever you guys would like to ask related to breathing mindfulness meditation or any other aspect of the path to enlightenment. Is these are the words of the Buddha. He says, meditate, monks, do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. This is the only thing you'll ever get from the Buddha, where he's like, okay, go ahead, go do something, right? He's never going to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything. He's not even trying to convince you of anything. He already got to peace and joy. He's not trying to impose anything on you. He's not trying to force or control you. His teachings don't have rules and commandments in them. He's just saying, hey, you would like to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state that I got to? Here's how to do it, right? And then for those people that have a sincere interest in learning to be able to understand how to do that, he shares it with them. For people who aren't interested, then he just doesn't share it, right? So this is him encouraging you to meditate, right? Do not be complacent or you'll regret it later. Because when you have anxiety, when you have stress, when you have guilt, shame, or fear, these other discontented feelings coming into the mind, you're going to regret having not meditated. The thing that I would say along with this is never give up. Don't ever give up on your meditation practice, because giving up on your meditation practice is resigning yourself to being angry, frustrated, irritated, annoyed, and all those other feelings for the rest of your life. Right? You're just relegating yourself to a life full of anger and frustration. You don't have to do that. You can opt out of these feelings, right? Just like you unsubscribe to an email list, you can actually opt out of these discontent feelings. You don't need to keep going around experiencing anger and frustration, guilt and shame and fear, stress, anxiety, and all these other feelings. You can actually train your mind to no longer do that. So the meditation is going to help you to be able to do that. But if you give up on your meditation, you're just relegating yourself to that life of difficulties and struggles where your mind's experiencing the grief, sorrow, and sadness over and over and over again. So if you follow the recommendation that I'm recommending for you, which is 2 meditations, let's just say 2 meditations a day, that's about 60 meditations in a month. Well, you're not going to necessarily get to 60 meditations every single month because of impermanence. It's just not possible. But if you get to 52, 54, 55, you're still making your way to enlightenment, right? You're going to miss meditation here and there. Your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on if you miss meditation today or not. Your enlightenment is going to be determined as if you miss meditation today, what do you do next? Do you let that be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year that you're not meditating? Or do you I missed meditation this morning. Let me get right back on that, right? That's what's going to determine whether you actually get to enlightenment. Is what do you do next after you miss meditation? There was a period of time in my life where I didn't meditate for about 3 years. I might say that this was some of the most difficult and challenging times in my life during those 3 years, but ultimately I got back into it. And that's where ultimately I was able to implement what the Buddha was teaching. So you might notice that your meditation practice kind of ebbs and flows a bit, but over time you would like to build that up to the point where you're consistently meditating. Just like right now, you probably can't imagine going more than a day without taking a shower. It's the same thing with meditation, that if you've been taught to clean the body, if you went outside and you didn't clean the body, you'd feel pretty uncomfortable. But there's this other part to this being. It's not just a physical body. There's this mind, and you might not have learned how to clean the mind growing up. But now you're in a place that understands how to do that. And now if you learn how to clean the mind, you can go out into the world more and more with a clean mind. And just like if you walked around for several days or weeks or months or years without cleaning the body, you'd feel pretty uncomfortable. Well, if you haven't been cleaning the mind for several days, weeks, months, years, maybe your entire life, you haven't been cleaning the mind, that's why you feel uncomfortable. That's why there's the stress and anxiety and all these other feelings, because Our parents taught us how to clean the body, but they didn't have the wisdom of how to teach us to clean the mind. But now you're an adult and you can figure that out. You can learn how to clean your mind. And this is going to be a practice of loving kindness for this being, for compassion for this being. So I encourage you to never, ever, ever give up on your meditation practice and continue to grow and develop in this journey. If you'd like to take classes and courses and retreats here, you're more than welcome to do that. There's opportunities for you to get access to all these resources. Everything's available to you at no cost, whether it's classes, courses, retreats, books, videos, podcasts, personal guidance. You can access all of these teachings at no cost. If you have the determination and dedication to train your mind, you'll be able to experience more and more of the qualities of this enlightened mental state. Because the teachings of the Buddha are to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But what's hurting you is inside one's own mind. It's not the outside world. Oftentimes people perceive it that way and they think they need to change the outside world. But when you start working on this inner world within your own mind, you can see that you'll actually experience this improvement, because there's be situations where you were once angry and frustrated and agitated, and you'll experience those same situations and you'll see your mind is quite peaceful and joyful. And you'll know that it's these teachings that are leading to that. So I'm going to see if you guys have any questions. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you'd like to ask? Yes, ma'am. The microphone's here. And remember, for those of you guys online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
Thank you very much. I think it's especially helpful when you meditate, when you see the colors, it's normal. Not a special.
The microphone's impermanent. Yeah, you might need another microphone. Yeah, the batteries are probably dying in that one. Yeah.
Okay, this one looks better.
Yeah.
So I think it's very helpful to understand that we see colors and it's very normal. What my question is, so when I'm seeing the colors, should I be watching it? Because it seems that I can't stop watching the change of, colors or shapes. Is that a bad thing, or like what should I do when I'm like observing that?
Yeah, I don't think of it as good or bad. It just is what is, that you will notice these things going on, and you like to just cut that thought off too and bring the mind right back to the breath. Don't allow the mind to get pleasant feelings when you see those colors, because sometimes the mind's like, oh wow, look at that, that's really beautiful. And then sometimes people are like, look at me, I'm special because my mind's experiencing this. Just cut all that off and just keep coming back to the breath, because that is an impermanent situation. And if you allow your mind to get pleasant feelings in that situation, when it's not happening any longer, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. So just keep bringing your mind back to the breath and just understanding what that is. And that's actually a really beneficial thing, that if you're noticing those colors, it means that things are shifting and changing within the brain, and that's helpful. And if you're not seeing those colors, it doesn't mean anything wrong is going on, because you'll go through a period of time where you'll experience those changes. But then once they're done, they're done. You won't have those situations anymore.
Just to follow up, so it's not that if I'm seeing those colors at one point, I'm see my past, or like see a Buddha or see a third eye, because I think I read that somewhere, or like have been taught about that somewhere. So when I'm saying that, I also feel like if I keep looking at it, maybe I'm going to see something extraordinary or enlightening. So that's not going to happen.
No, that's not going to happen. That's just your mind holding on. And what you're trying to do is train your mind to let go, because that's what's causing the mind to be angry and sad and frustrated and all these other discontent feelings, is it's holding on. Right? Because you can think back to maybe that boyfriend or girlfriend that you guys broke up, and then you were angry or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person. Your mind was holding on, craving that permanence. But at some point, your mind let go, and that's where your peace and your joy came back. So you need to be able to train your mind to let go. So if you're looking at those colors and you're holding on to them, you're not doing what the mind needs to do, which is let go. So that's what you're building, is that internal mechanism to let go.
Thank you. I have a really different question. When I'm doing meditation, as you said, there might be noises, other things happening around me, and I know that I should not be disturbed by those things. But I noticed that if, for example, in the last 2 sessions, I had my husband with me. If I hear noise coming from him, he breathes. I would want to interact with him, and like, maybe after the session I would like to talk to him to say like, oh, maybe you can breathe lightly. So there's a lot of expectation I have on him, and I want to change some of his actions. But I noticed tons of people moving around, especially people next to me, going up and down, and like I don't know what they're doing, but I'm not that bothered.
Yeah.
So why is that happening?
Yeah. So relationships that you're closest in, like a life partner, you're going to have deep craving, desire, attachment, and the mind's feelings are connected to that person. And what you're looking to do is train your mind to not do that, because this person is impermanent in your life, and you can't control or force them and put expectations on them, because that's not loving them as they truly are. So you would like to get to the point where you're not looking to put expectations on others, and you're not trying to control others, because that way you can then get to the point where your mind's peaceful and joyful no matter what people choose in their own life. And then you just make choices for your life to be able to experience the things that you're looking to experience. So stopping your husband from breathing a certain way or making certain sounds isn't going to produce peace in your mind. But the reason why your mind is doing that is because you guys have this long-term established relationship where you have deep craving, desire, attachment in that relationship. So there's ways for you to train your mind to let that go, where you guys can have a relationship, but you're not having craving, desire, attachment and putting expectations on him. And those are other teachings that you would need to know how to be able to train your mind to let that go. But that's why it's happening, because of the craving, desire, attachment. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir. Or ma'am, sorry.
Hi, thank you. Earlier you said you use it, and I'm curious what you would suggest noticing to see, like, when you're done, like when are you done meditating for that session?
Oh, okay. Your mic cut out there for a little bit. You said earlier, I said
to try to not use a timer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what you do is you just start meditating, understanding that you're building up to 30 minutes. And then whenever you're done, you're just done. And then you look to see what time it is. And now over time, you will build kind of an internal clock that you'll know how long it's been that you've actually been meditating. So you don't need any artificial device to be able to tell you when you're done meditating. You can just make the choice for yourself that you're done. So just start meditating and meditate for as long or as short as you would like to meditate. And then when you're done, you're done. And then over time, you'll kind of build an awareness of how long 30 minutes is by checking in every once in a while with your clock. One thing I was going to add, ma'am, I forgot to mention, is you mentioned how your husband was making noise. It's important to not label it as noise, because this is kind of like a negative mindset for the mind, a negative perception. Just think of it as a sound. He's just making sound. That's all it is. Your mind is perceiving it as a noise because it doesn't like it. But if you just think of it as a sound, that'll actually change your perception of how you're experiencing this sound that you're hearing. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Sounds like these mics might need battery changes.
I want to know if I do a meditation, maybe in a place that someone else in there, maybe someone talk to me suddenly, or something happened or touched to me, so it is hard to me, or well, it's scared, or it's dangerous for my mind.
So while you're meditating, if someone touches you, are you asking me, is it dangerous for your mind?
Yeah, if I was doing a meditation, but someone suddenly touch me or speak loudly to me, so it is dangerous for my mind, or scare me or not?
Yeah, it's not dangerous for your mind. It's just impermanence. It's an impermanent situation. Somebody's touching this physical body or saying a certain thing. They're not actually causing you to be scared. They're not causing your fear. What's causing the fear is the mind is craving permanence. The mind is longing, yearning, and holding on to this meditation or this silence. And now when it hears the impermanence of a sound, that's where the mind gets startled, because it's craving permanence, where you need to be able to understand the world around you is impermanent. That's why changing the outside world is never going to lead you to peace and joy, because you can't get 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. So if something happens where you're meditating and some impermanence is occurring, because it's going to occur while you're meditating, just understand that it's impermanent. In fact, some people even seek this out during their meditation, that they will seek out environments where there is impermanence. I've seen people before on top of an engine compartment of a boat, where the engine compartment was rumbling and there was vibration on their body. The boat was rocking side to side. There was fumes that you could smell from the engine. It was a large boat, so there was probably 500 people in this boat, and there was lots of sounds, and they were sitting there attempting to meditate and train their mind to be unaffected by the outside world. That's what you're choosing the mind, or that's what you're training the mind to be able to do. So it's not dangerous for your mind. It's actually, some people even seek that out where there is some impermanence, so that you can train your mind to be unaffected by this impermanence of sounds or odors, things touching the body, and all these other things. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Do you have an alternative than chanting pre-meditation?
I only do chanting. That's the only thing I do, but other people might have some other things. Like you might decide to, do a little bit of stretching, just kind of like sit and do some general awareness of the mind. Chanting is always what I've used. But you can really use anything and everything that just brings awareness to your mind. It allows you to gather your thoughts and some general awareness, that you've done a little bit of that prior to meditating.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. I don't see any questions anywhere else. Oh, we have another one? Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And when I was doing the meditation, a lot of thought into my mind. So I keep thinking, breathing in and breathe out. So it's breathing and think about the breathing and breathe out is other kind of distraction.
Yeah, that's still your mind holding on. It hasn't fully let go. So sometimes people teach counting during meditation. Some people teach to say, here in Thailand, they'll say pu to, or any of those kinds of things. You're not interested in doing any of that kind of stuff, because it's just allowing the mind to hold on to something, and it hasn't truly let go yet. So you're interested in focusing the mind on the breath, and then that gives the mind the ability, if it chooses, to move off the breath. And now when it moves off the breath, you notice it and you cut it off and come back. So the way that you can think about this is that there's the body, there's the mind, and the combination of these two things we call the person. The person is training the mind. And when the mind's trying to be this wild animal where it's running around, you're pulling it back to the breath. So if you just have those kinds of things where like people are counting or saying puto or constantly talking to themselves during meditation, you haven't allowed the mind to actually go somewhere, so that now you can pull it back. Where the real power of this meditation is in the pulling it back, that you're getting the discipline of the mind to pull it back. Whereas if you just think thoughts in your mind while you're meditating, you're not ever allowing the mind to be able to leave, so that now you can bring it back. Because in your day-to-day life, when your mind's experiencing stress, anxiety, anger, and all those other feelings, your mind is uncontrolled. It's undisciplined in that situation. And what you're looking to do is gain this discipline and control over the mind. So that's what you're doing in the meditation, is the person is trying to get control and discipline over the mind, so that when the mind pulls, or in day-to-day life when it's becoming angered or frustrated or any other discontent feeling, the person can have control over that mind. And eventually you get to the point where your mind is just always disciplined, because you've done some really well training through getting to enlightenment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to end class just by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. The next event that we have here is on Friday night at 6 p.m. We have a social event where we have kind of like a little bit of a party here where we call it Temple Fun Night, where we play games together, we play music, we have food and snacks, people bring stuff. So if you'd like to come and hang out for a social event, that's on Friday night. On Saturday and Sunday mornings, we have our Polycanon and English study group and our group learning program, where this Sunday in the group learning program, I'm going to be teaching the next part, the next segment of the Eightfold Path. And then on Sunday, I'm going to be starting a retreat from 3 to 5. I'm going to be starting a retreat that's going to last all next week, where it's titled Developing a Life Practice to Attain the First Stage of Enlightenment. I'm going to be teaching everything you need to be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment, starting on Sunday at 3 and then all next week as well. And if you need details on that, you can come talk to me, or you can look at our website or our bulletin board over there. You'll be able to get access to be able to see what it is that I'm going to be teaching. And as you guys remember, everything's available at no cost. So we have classes, courses, and retreats here. There's plenty of opportunities for you to learn. There's even a meditation on Sunday evening in the main hall at 6:30. So if you're interested in learning more about this path, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.